Bob Odenkirk walked onto the stage with that mix of awkward charm and sharp wit that always followed him, the audience clapping loudly while Jimmy Fallon bounced in his seat, clapping along too, doing his usual exaggerated welcome as if he was about to hug the air itself. "Ladies and gentlemen, Bob Odenkirk." Bob sat down, adjusted his jacket, and before Jimmy could even get a word out, Bob leaned forward with a mischievous grin and said, "You know, Jimmy, you look like a clown tonight." The audience laughed hard, thinking it was a joke, but Bob didn't smile, he just tilted his head like he meant it, and Jimmy chuckled nervously. "Ah, well, thank you, I think." "A clown, huh? Is it the tie? Too colorful?" Bob shook his head. "No, it's the whole thing. The way you're sitting, the way you clap at your own jokes, it's like you're auditioning for the circus every night. I mean, you've built a whole career on being the guy who laughs harder than anyone else in the room. It's almost clownish." The audience's laughter shifted into awkward chuckles, some people clapping uncertainly, unsure if this was scripted or if Bob was actually taking a shot. Jimmy leaned back, still trying to play it off. "Well, you know, people like to laugh. I'm just trying to make sure everyone's having a good time." Bob smirked. "Yeah, but are you having a good time? Or are you just painting on that big red smile every night?" That one landed heavier, and Jimmy blinked quickly, then did his usual nervous giggle. "Wow, we're starting deep tonight, huh? Usually we ease into this." Bob shrugged. "I didn't come here to play softball. I've done enough talk shows where it's all, tell us about the movie, tell us about the funny thing on set. But Jimmy, you've been doing this for years, and sometimes I wonder if people are laughing with you, or just at the act." Jimmy tried to regain control, tapping his cards against the desk. Okay, fair enough. Bob's here to promote his new project. Let's not forget that. Bob, you've had an incredible career, Mr. Show, Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, movies, books. You've reinvented yourself more times than most actors get the chance to. So tell us, do you ever feel like you had to put on the clown face to survive this business? Bob rubbed his chin, pretending to think, then leaned in. "Difference is, Jimmy, I can take the face off. I can be serious when I want. You? I'm not sure people even know what the real you looks like." The audience gasped a little, then broke into nervous applause, like they didn't want to miss a beat of whatever was happening. Jimmy forced another laugh, but his smile was thinner. "Well, Bob, the real me is right here, sitting across from you, getting roasted on my own show." Bob smiled slightly. "Good. Then maybe tonight's the night you stop playing the clown and start being the host." Jimmy nodded quickly, trying to move forward. Okay, I see what's happening here. This is the edgy Bob Odenkirk, coming at me with the tough love." Bob shook his head. "No, not tough love. Just honesty. People are smart, Jimmy. They know when something's fake. They know when the laugh isn't real. And sometimes watching you is like watching someone juggling just to distract the crowd from realizing he doesn't have much else in his hands." The room got quieter, and Jimmy sat back, tapping his pen, trying to decide if he should keep laughing it off or push back. "You know what, Bob," he finally said, "I get it. You've always been the guy who calls things out, who digs into the uncomfortable stuff. And that's why people respect you. But don't forget, you're sitting on my stage. You're in my house. And in my house, a little laughter never killed anyone." The audience cheered, giving Jimmy the upper hand for a second, and he smiled at the reaction, but Bob didn't let go. "Sure, but too much laughter, Jimmy, too much of the fake stuff? That kills the soul." The camera caught Jimmy's face, trying to hold onto his smile, but his eyes flashing annoyance for the first time. He shuffled his cards again and said quickly, "So Bob, let's talk about your new film before I end up crying in the corner here." Bob leaned back in his chair finally, letting the tension ease just a little. "Fine, let's talk about it. But just know, I didn't come here to juggle." The audience laughed and clapped again, some still sensing that something bigger was brewing between the two men, as if the playful jab at the start had turned into something sharper, something personal, and while Jimmy tried to steer it back into safe territory, Bob's words lingered in the air, a little too real for comfort, like a seed of conflict planted right there in the opening moments of the show. Jimmy shifted in his chair and gave that big laugh again, but this time it was thinner, like the smile didn't quite reach his eyes, and he said, "All right, Bob, so you came here tonight to throw punches, huh? I guess I should have worn gloves." The audience chuckled, sensing the tension but still rolling with the entertainment, and Bob leaned forward with that dry, deliberate tone of his. Not punches, Jimmy, just observations. Isn't that what you say you love about comedians? They notice things people don't say out loud? Well, I'm just noticing. Jimmy nodded slowly, tapping his pen against his desk. Okay, so you're saying my whole job is fake, that's fine. You know what, I'll take it, because I've been in this business long enough to know people don't always want the truth. They want to laugh, they want to forget their day, they want something light. That's what I give them. Bob smirked. Light is fine. Empty isn't. You've got an audience eating out of your hand every night, and instead of giving them something real, you're giving them candy. And candy every night, Jimmy, it rots the teeth. That line got a mix of laughter and gasps, and Jimmy pointed at him. See, there you go again with the drama. But let me ask you this, Bob. What's so real about you coming here, on my stage, playing the grumpy truth-teller? You think you're not putting on an act right now? You think this isn't your own version of a clown mask? Bob didn't flinch, he just tilted his head. Difference is, I know it's an act. I admit it. I'm not pretending. You're pretending to be everyone's best friend. I'm just the guy saying, hey, the emperor's got no clothes. The crowd reacted loudly to that, half laughing, half wincing at how sharp it sounded, and Jimmy finally leaned in, dropping his smile just a bit. You know, Bob, the emperor might not have clothes, but the emperor also has the keys to this show. And if you're gonna sit here tearing me down, at least have the guts to admit you like being on this stage, because without shows like this, you wouldn't be sitting in front of millions right now. Bob let that sit for a second, then nodded. You're right. I'm here. I'm playing along. But I'm also not afraid to say what people are thinking. And I think sometimes, Jimmy, you hide behind the fun. And maybe you don't need to. The audience clapped at that, some people even cheering, as if Bob had touched a nerve that resonated, and Jimmy laughed again, but there was an edge in it now. Well, maybe tonight I'll surprise you. Maybe tonight you'll see the real me. Bob raised his eyebrows. Good. Because the real you is the only one I came here to talk to. For a moment, the room was strangely quiet for a late-night show, that mix of laughter and tension balanced on a knife edge, and Jimmy quickly waved his hands, breaking it. All right, enough therapy, let's not scare everyone at home. Bob Odenkirk is here, and he's clearly here to keep me honest, whether I like it or not. The crowd clapped again, relieved, but everyone could feel it. This wasn't just playful banter anymore, it was turning into something more serious, something that might blow up before the night was over. Jimmy leaned back in his chair, tapping the desk like he was trying to shake off the tension, but his smile was tight and the audience could feel the air shift again, and he said, You know, Bob, you keep talking about the clown thing, the fake smile, the act, but let me tell you something, there are people who tune in every night because this show makes them feel better. Maybe it's silly, maybe it's light, maybe it's candy like you say, but sometimes candy is what gets people through the day. The crowd cheered, giving Jimmy a little boost, and he nodded quickly, feeding off it. So yeah, maybe I'm a clown, but at least I'm a clown that makes people happy. Bob paused, leaning forward with that dry calmness that cut through applause. But at whose expense, Jimmy? If you laugh at everything, then nothing matters. If every guest is amazing and every story is the best ever, then you're not celebrating people, you're flattening them into noise. You're so afraid of silence that you drown everything in laughter. That drew a sharp murmur from the audience, and Jimmy's jaw tightened just a little. Wow, Bob, you really know how to throw a party. You come here, I give you my stage, and you decide to tell everyone I'm noise. You know, there's a reason I do this job and you don't. People don't want someone staring into the camera and lecturing them, they want a break. Bob smirked. Funny, because I think people can handle more than you give them credit for. You don't have to laugh at your own jokes every night. You don't have to clap like a seal just to fill the space. You're better than that, Jimmy, if you'd stop hiding. That line hit harder, and the audience went quiet for a beat before clapping again, divided between the sharpness of Bob's words and the host's discomfort. Jimmy forced a smile. Well, maybe you're right. Maybe I do hide. Maybe I'm scared of silence, scared of letting the moment just sit. But you know what? At least I'm not sitting here tearing people down to make myself feel important. Bob froze for a second, then gave a slow nod. Fair point. Maybe I do that sometimes. But at least when I do it, it's honest. And honesty, Jimmy, that's what lasts longer than any punchline. The audience clapped hard at that, the kind of applause that wasn't just polite but emotional, sensing they were watching something raw and unscripted. Jimmy looked down at his desk, shuffled his cards, then looked back up with that wide smile, only this time it wasn't nervous, it was defiant. "All right, Bob, here's the deal. You came here tonight to be the guy who calls me a clown, to strip away the act. And you did it. But if I'm a clown, then tonight the clown gave you the biggest stage you've had in a while. And that's the irony, isn't it?" The crowd gasped and then laughed loudly, some even cheering at the comeback, and Bob leaned back, giving the faintest grin to Shay. "Guess the clown finally threw a pie back." Jimmy laughed genuinely this time, slapping the desk. There it is. Finally a laugh that isn't painful. The tension broke into big applause, the crowd standing to their feet, and though the conversation had been sharp, awkward, and more honest than most late-night TV ever dared to be, both men shook hands across the desk, the cameras catching that mix of relief and respect on their faces. The show cut to commercial with the energy buzzing, the audience whispering like they just witnessed something that would be replayed for days, and the episode closed with Jimmy joking, "Well, ladies and gentlemen, Bob Odenkirk came in tonight and told me I look like a clown. And honestly, I think it was the best compliment I've ever gotten." The audience roared, the curtain dropped, and the whole night ended not with fake laughter, but with the uncomfortable, unforgettable feeling of something real breaking through the late-night gloss.